Ready?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order with a statement of proper notice. Notice of this meeting has been posted on the municipal bulletin board and forwarded to the Hopewell Valley News, the Trentonian, and the Hopewell Express on March 21st, 2025, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Roll call, please.
Committee Member Kaczynski.
Here.
Committee Member Purandare.
Here.
Committee Member Ruger.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Jate.
Here.
Mayor Peters Manning.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight we have a pretty short agenda. We are going to continue our municipal budget discussion, but we do have a resolution on the agenda, which is a resolution of the Township of Hopewell, Mercer County, authorizing a settlement. This is about our affordable housing obligation, and I know that there are members of the public that would like to speak before we vote on this resolution, but I think it would be helpful if we have Mr. Goodell give us a summary of what has happened. We have been talking about affordable housing for years and years in Hopewell Township, but this fourth round of affordable housing really since January in earnest is when it got started. So could you please, Mr. Goodell, tell us where the number is now, where it started, what has happened, and how we got here?
Sure. So I can go back to last year when the new Affordable Housing Act was adopted. The goal of the legislature was to create a process which was different from anything that had happened before. They wanted this to have less litigation, not be regulated through the courts. They abolished COA, so it would not be regulated through an administrative process either, and they wanted these decisions to be made quickly rather than linger over many years. So they created a hybrid process that creates, through the administrative office of the courts, something called the program. Not very colorfully named, simply the program. The program consists of 5 retired judges, including Judge Jacobson, who is the retired assignment judge for Mercer County, and she's the one who oversaw our third round of affordable housing. We were assigned to her. She was the member of the program that we appeared before. In order to determine a municipality's number, in other words, what their fair share obligation would be for the next 10 years, the municipality had to first certify an amount, a number, and that number had to be derived by following the formula that was found by Judge Jacobson to be appropriate for determining regional need in the third round. Our experts did that, and we came up with a number that was, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was in the lower
348.
348, right. And that's the number that we certified. At that point, anyone who wanted to challenge the number had 2 weeks to file a challenge. And we got challenges from 2 different groups, from the New Jersey Builders Association, and we got challenged from Fair Share Housing Center. The Builders Association filed against any municipality that reduced their number from the number that DCA had originally suggested would be appropriate when DCA did their analysis. Fair Share selected various municipalities who had large cuts from the DCA number. Because we had a very large cut from the DCA number, we were on their hit list. Each of those sides then prepared lengthy expert reports. The builders had an expert report from Craig Rankamp, who is a planner, and Fair Share had an expert report from David Kinsey, who was the planner who originally helped COA in the first round, and then also was the planner for Fair Share in the third round, who presented the evidence that led Judge Jacobson to find the formula a few years ago. So the builders report said that the only group that had, throughout the state, that had done the analysis correctly was DCA. DCA was the only group that actually looked at all of the municipalities and their land capacity, used a uniform set of data, however flawed that data may be, and then divided up the regional share among the municipalities in accordance with the formula. Fair Share took a different approach. They did more of a lot-by-lot analysis, but at the end of the day also determined that there needed to be a reallocation among municipalities within the region. So the expert report from the builders said that our requirement should be 543, like DCA had, and from Fair Share it said actually it should be 544, one over, when they looked at our land capacity. The builders indicated that they were not interested in settling with anyone. But Fair Share said that they would consider our lot-by-lot analysis. So for 2 weeks, we went back and forth with them, with our experts showing them why we thought various lots were undevelopable, and then showing us why they thought that the lots should be counted. We had the first step of the process before the program was a settlement conference that was held on Tuesday, March 11th, before Judge Jacobson. We told Judge Jacobson at that time that we were still going back and forth with Fair Share, and that we were making progress. So she set us down for the next step, which is called a session. Otherwise, it would be known as a hearing. But no one's actually had a session, so nobody knows exactly how the judges are going to deal with those hearings. We said we thought we could reach resolution with Fair Share by that time. And that was scheduled for Thursday, March 20th, just last Thursday. So again, lots of back and forth. We were in almost constant contact with Fair Share. Our planners and their planners went back and forth. And at the end of the day, we had to determine whether either to settle with Fair Share or to try to litigate this before Judge Jacobson. And we decided the better course at that point, since we were getting in the range of numbers that we thought we could accept and deal with, that the better course was to settle.
And if we went to a hearing, Fair Share would then reinvigorate their objections to some of the parcels that they had agreed were undevelopable.
Oh, they'd be back to their 544 number.
Right.
They would have been putting up proofs to say that Hopewell's analysis was flawed, primarily because of the way they looked at their vacant lands. They should have been looking at them the way Kinsey is looking at them. Kinsey, they would say, and we would have disagreed, but they would say Kinsey had a fairer way of looking at them because he was looking at lands across the region in the same way, therefore treating all municipalities in a similar fashion. And that if Hopewell or another town left the region with 100 or 150 fewer units than the region required, then it would have been benefiting at the expense of everybody else and at the expense of the people who need affordable housing, because there would have been an unmet regional need after that. So they would have had factual issues with us. And again, we think that what we did was right, but we would have had to litigate those factual issues. And then they had a legal issue, which quite frankly is unresolved now and won't be resolved until maybe a year in the future if somebody does challenge it and it goes to the appellate division. And that is there a requirement that if a municipality deducts what it thinks is its land capacity and leaves the region with a deficit, does there need to be a reallocation within that district? Given the uncertainty, obviously the goal to have certainty, avoid litigation costs, and again, achieve certainty so that we can move forward quickly. Again, our next round, we have to have our plan done by the end of June, I think. Then the better course was to take a deal that we thought was a favorable deal to us, particularly because I mean, we're monitoring deals throughout the state. This was a far better deal than we think Fair Share was offering other municipalities. At the end of the day, it was endorsed by the special master, and it was endorsed by Judge Jacobson. So that's what we've got before us now.
So Mr. Goodell, perhaps I can clarify with you a couple things from the last round, because we've been through this before, right? So one of the provisions that is applicable to the fourth round that was not applicable to the third round is that we are able to get credit for renewing affordability controls, which this body had a public hearing on, and I understand we're doing very well on renewing affordability controls. Is that correct?
And I talked to Fair Share about that. They're very interested in our plan to renew controls.
Yeah. So back in the 90s, when Brandon Farms was first built, there were a number of affordable units, and those units are now coming up to where their affordability controls have expired, and we are able to simply get credit in the fourth round if we renew those affordability controls. And as we talked with our residents, those ongoing protections are very much in favorable of affording them as affordable units. And so, you know, I think we're still working through the numbers, but there are both things in Brandon Farms and there's stuff in the subsequent developments that we're hopeful we can move forward in this round. And I know we'll talk about it when we talk about the agreement, but I think one of the most important things I took away from this round is that we have to preserve those affordability controls, and that substantially reduces the number.
And I think with in the third round, what the big message was that we had all inclusionary neighborhoods, so that increased the number of total units to be built. Our number was over 1,000, but with bonus credits, it was 653 actual affordable units to be built. But because it was such a large number, we needed to do that with inclusionary developments because it would have bankrupted the town if we had to pay for all of that ourselves. But since we were able to reduce this number to 399 units, I am confident that, and Mr. Banish helped us be confident that we can at least, if we choose to, do this fourth round without building market rate units or with building very few market rate units. That is the next step. We're not at that step yet of developing the plan, but because we were able to reduce this number by so much, there's a path forward to get to 100% affordable developments, one or two perhaps, extending affordability controls. We have the group home projects with the Arc Mercer, which received double bonus credits by bedroom. So I am confident that our plan will come together over the next, what is it, by June 1st, June 30th? June 30th, that we have to have our plan in place. But we've been planning all along, and with this number, I think we can achieve it in the realm of the plan that we've already talked about and
No, I think that's very fair, Mayor. I mean, and sort of, I think the fourth round is going to look different from the third round.
Much different.
And, you know, step one, I think, is around affordability controls, and we are working hard. We know exactly how many units in Brandon Farms currently qualify, and we are working to get those owners to sign off. We are also pursuing, there are some other units that we believe are also capable that we're going to pursue as well. Number two, we've previously had a public hearing on the group homes. So there will be a farm-oriented property in the middle of the township that will provide both, it'll be a live and work opportunity, and we will get almost 50 credits for that in a way that helps people who have come through our community and through our education system have a place to work and continue their lives. And so I'm really much in favorable of those elements. We will flush those elements out as we get forward to the plan. And I think to what the mayor said is, you know, in the third round, we went more of an inclusionary standpoint. We now believe with some of the new programs the state and federal bodies have created that we can move forward with 100% affordable properties, both seniors and otherwise. And much like we welcomed Project Freedom, we look forward to welcoming a couple additional communities. And we think within that, we'll be able to fully satisfy our need.
And that to me is really the fundamental, but also really critical nature of the number that we're talking about today versus that 543 DCA number and that 544 fair share number versus the 399 today. because, again, as been shared, with the potential ability to do so and to meet this all-important requirement and obligation without new market rate units, is really, really, you know, again, not just strong for the community, but when you think about that 543 number, it is not possible to do. And had that been the number we'd be talking about today, it wouldn't be 399 versus 543. It'd be 399 versus 1,500 or some other number. And I think that's really the key thing here.
Agreed. Anyone else like to say anything? I will open it up to public on this issue. I know this is a controversial issue, and it's something that the community cares a lot about. So if you would like to speak, please come to the podium on this topic. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, and state your name, where you live. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand.
John Hart, Hopewell Township. It's nice to be back. Let's see everybody's smiling faces.
Put your
Is Frank
microphone.
Banish on the line?
You have to put your microphone.
There you go. Is Frank Banish on the line by chance?
No.
Oh. He's not a friend of Hopewell Township. The planner is like, he's working for Hopewell, he's working for you people. He's not working for the developers. And every time I hear Frank talk, it sounds like he's working for the developers. You are seriously looking at, you got the same challenges Hamilton has. Hamilton has the same numbers we have. They have almost 100,000 people in the municipality. 100,000. We got like 20,000 now. We're going to have like 25,000 in a year or two. Why, Steve, do we have the same numbers as Hamilton Township? That makes 0 sense. We don't have the schools, the sewer service, the towns, the 120 or 140 towns that are challenging this right now are going to win a lot of their cases. They're like us. They either have full capacity or sewer service, or they have no sewer service. They have no schools to put these kids in. Our planner has not had anything, and the reports I said, that said Hopewell is maxed out. They are completely maxed out. We got 3,500 acres of open space that's not farmland. Our farmland percentage is getting down to, now you're below, you're going to be down to 40% if you take any more farmland out of here. And you're going to lose all your farmland preservation money, all your planning incentive grant money, your ag committee hasn't had any meetings, so you're not going to get any pig money. So putting more of these homes in, you're just killing agriculture in central Jersey. And these towns are fighting it like crazy. And your planner is the one that's supposed to be fighting. And he hasn't said one negative thing about development coming in Hopewell. The schools are completely full, and they're going to be worse when these houses get in there. And it's not even working that well, because I met some people at my farm on Sunday that live in Brandon Farms. They're moving to the new houses because it's cheaper to move there and live there than it is where they're at because of the pilot program, the taxes, and the interest rate. 3 families are moving over there, not in the condo, in the house. So that's not what that was even for. And we're not going to get anybody to do any farmland preservation if we don't have any farmlands left. And I don't know where you're going to put this. The only place you got really left is maybe Traveling's farm over there. I don't know. Do you have an idea where you're going to put it? You're telling you're going to vote on it today. Where are you going to put it? You're going to that the county's going to give you some land? I don't think so. So I don't know. I'd like to know right now if you have any idea where you're going to put 400 homes, because you maxed out everything else on this side.
Are you done? Thank you for your comments. So you know how this works. You ask
Yeah,
questions
but I'm just letting you know, as a state board member, we're fighting the affordable housing for municipalities like us, and we need support from the planner, and he's not giving it to this town. I'm just letting you know. I would, I wouldn't vote on this because I would get in that litigation
Thank you.
because we don't have room for 400 houses.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom, Ms. Van Newman? Okay.
Yes, Jim Bird, Hopewell Township. I wanted to let you know that I looked at the NJ.com today and saw that Hopewell Township did not win on that opportunity to try to lower the numbers. So that's number one. Number two is Bill S-50, which was approved, and that is what they did to establish the affordable housing units for each municipality, and that was back in October of last year. In December is when the bill came out, S-4065, which I discussed with you at one of our last meetings. And as I reiterated at that time, if you take the time and think about this, work with the other municipalities throughout all of New Jersey in regards to this, we would be talking 120 affordable housing units from 2025 to 2035. Now, there's some individuals that don't think this is a great idea, but this was put together by the attorneys that represent all of the municipalities throughout New Jersey. And they evaluated it completely, and that's where they found that the big problem was there was no evaluation on how to come up with this number. What they did was they reevaluated it and said, okay, let's look at 2010 to 2020 for the COs. And at that point, we take out any of the homes that were built, that was torn down and rebuilt at that same place. And then they multiplied that number by 20%. And the important thing about that is that the builder's remedy back in 1985 came up with the builder's remedy. And they said 20% affordable housing, but 80% market value. And that's what they're utilizing here, saying, okay, we'll utilize 20%, which brings us down to 120. And I ask you, why do you not talk with the other communities in Mercer County? Because I've been at Ewing and I've been at Lawrence. So I wait to hear from what you have to say in regards to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Anyone on Zoom, Ms. Fenton Newman? Okay, so with that, I'll close the public comment section. So I don't think you both were listening to what we said, because we said that we will be extending affordability controls, we will be doing group homes. We have no plans to build lots of inclusionary development again. We just said that. And so your number, the number of credits that we need to get is 399. And as we all mentioned, there will be an opportunity to do this without market rate units or with very few market rate units. So I don't know what you saw on NewJersey.com, but this is what Mr. Goodell told us is what our settlement, and it's the plan, and it's what how we are moving forward. Mr. Hart, Hamilton does not have the same number as Hopewell Township in the DCA numbers. Hamilton's was very close to Hopewell's, but they didn't challenge very many of their numbers. They brought it down by maybe 10 units or so. We brought ours down by 27%. So that is not correct information that Hamilton has the same number as Hopewell Township. Theirs is very different than ours. I listened to you when you were speaking, so now it's my turn. It is also not true that our schools are completely full. We have open seats in the school. Maybe Mr. Kretinsky, you can talk to this about since the peak enrollment of how many seats are open at this point?
We had 4,200, almost 4,200 open seats, or complete seats at the peak, and we are under 3,500 seats today. So we have fully 1/6 of the school capacity, and I've had 4 kids who've gone through this school system. I very much value our school system and don't want to spend more dollars than we need to. And so I watch the school enrollment very closely, and right now we are well below. I think in the last referendum, as you know, while we want to get the kids out of the trailers at Bear Tavern, I believe that the state declared that it was educationally unnecessary for more capacity to be built at Bear Tavern, even with our prospective third round need. And so we as a committee have committed to getting our kids out of their trailers, because we think that classrooms are better than trailers, but from a capacity standpoint, we could see a substantial increase in absorb, I believe.
And there will be, I'm sorry, Mr. Hart, please do not yell out. You had your opportunity to speak, now it's our turn to speak.
And so we,
You can go out stuff like
Just
he
wait.
does, what's not true. You got 3,700 homes out there. He's telling me there's not gonna be kids out there?
we did a joint demographic
Don't
study.
engage.
Yeah, that was a lie, too.
All right, so I'm not going to get into an argument back and forth with the audience. I just wanted to correct the misinformation that you said in your comments. So thank you for your comments. Is there anything else from the committee before we vote on this?
So, Mayor, there
Yes.
is something I'd like to say.
Yes.
So, 50 years ago today, the Supreme Court of New Jersey decided the Mount Laurel case. The decision mandates that municipalities provide a realistic opportunity for the construction of their fair share of low and moderate income housing. Now, I fully support the doctrine and our constitutional and moral obligation to provide affordable housing, but the devil's in the details. And the implementation of the Mount Laurel doctrine has been, to put it mildly, a challenge for municipalities, and the current fourth round is no exception. In my view, the state legislature set up a process with expedited timeframes that, when implemented, had no correlation with reality. For example, we, along with every municipality in the state, had closely reviewed the initial affordable housing commitment that was provided by the Department of Community Affairs, and we did this at the invitation of the DCA. After we filed the revised numbers, because we found errors in the DCA's numbers, parties then had 1 month to object, and then 1 month more for the parties to reach settlements. Every community in the state had the same deadline. For something as important as the future of affordable housing, these were absurd timelines. That said, our professionals did an amazing job with this. Despite these time constraints, as the mayor said, we reduced our overall commitment by 27%. And as the mayor said, this means that we have a very real opportunity to meet our commitment without having to build market rate units. That's a big deal. And it also means that we have legal certainty in our numbers without the risk of litigation. We've retained control over our future. That too is a big deal. I believe the timeframes imposed by the legislature and the very real need to avoid uncertainty that can arise through further proceedings, we've reached an optimal outcome. That does not mean that I had to like the process that we and other communities had to follow.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more that the timeline was bananas, but
It was 2 weeks.
it was, yeah.
2 weeks to challenge and 2 weeks to resolve.
It was crazy. But, you know, Mr. Goodell, Mr. Banish, Mr. Katriniak, along with Mr. Kaczynski and Mr. Chait and all of us worked really hard over those for 2 weeks. And I think we came to the best result possible. Is it perfect? No, but that's what happens when settlement happens. Everybody gives a little and gets a little, but it's based on data. It is, we are in control of our future, as Mr. Ruger said, and we can come up with a plan that will minimize the number of market rate units, if any, that will be built. So
Yeah, and I think it's important, Mayor, just to reinforce, this township has a long, somewhat positive, somewhat not positive history on affordable housing. When we ignored the courts, we were subject to a builder's remedy lawsuit, and we have a beautiful community today called Brandon Farms, but it was at an 8 or 9 to 1 ratio because that's the formula that was enforced at the day. And so I, in good faith, can't subject the community to the risk of that. In a builder's remedy lawsuit, a builder can come in and they can, to Mr. Hart's point, they can pick any property, does not even have to be zoned for housing. They can pick a farm. They can't pick preserved space, thankfully, but they can pick any property in the township, and that's subject to development if they can show the courts they have a realistic opportunity to bring infrastructure to that site. That's at a 8 to 9-1 ratio. I'm not willing to go that route. I believe the mayor has stated a couple times that the net number of that 399 is going to be much lower. It's going to be much lower because of careful planning and consideration and evaluation of the rules. We're going to start with affordability controls. The best thing we can do is work with the residents of Brandon Farms, as we've been doing, to reduce that obligation and extend those affordability controls. The numbers are in their favor to do that. And so we'll see what that final number is. We'll have that number by June. We're also going to do things that, you know, we talked earlier about group homes. That will be almost 48 units or credits with, you know, 6 group homes on an agrarian-oriented work-live property that we have talked about with neighbors, and we are working with ARC. The last bits, we have some work to do. And, you know, I know this group will come forward and they'll encourage us to think hard about it, but I'm confident that we can do those obligations with minimal impact on our community. We have learned from what is going on now, and we are, we can disagree over whether the demographer's report is right or wrong, but the facts are that even with the build out of the third round, there were empty seats in our school system. And that was not our conclusion, that was the demographer that was hired by the school district. And so we'll see. Housing is turning over. Homes that were held by longtime residents people are moving out and families with kids are moving in. But, I can deal with the facts. And, as the mayor said, it's not a perfect agreement. It never is when you have to get down the road. We spent significant monies defending ourselves in the third round, and we believe in the fourth round that where we landed is an acceptable and appropriate place. And I'm happy if people disagree with that. I'm going to vote yes tonight because I think given the outcomes we saw in the last round, towns like South Brunswick did not settle. They went to court. South Brunswick got 3,000 affordable housing units assigned to them. West Windsor did not settle, and they were punished by the builders and others. And a community that once was very much like Hopewell Township is significantly more developed than Hopewell Township is. And I think we have to fight for what has always been important to us. We have to be choiceful on how we move forward with the plan, but I don't want to be like one of those communities that has been punished.
Agreed, thank you. Anything else before we vote? All right, roll call, please.
I need a motion.
Oh, could I have a motion, please, for the resolution A?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Committee Member Kaczynski,
Yes.
Committee Member Pirandari,
Yes.
Committee Member Ruger,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Chait,
Yes.
Mayor Peters Manning.
Yes.
And this resolution passes.
Thank you. So now we'll move to, I believe this is our final 2025 municipal budget discussion. We have two utilities to discuss this evening. The ELSA sewer, the utility, and the SBSRA. Is that right, Ms. Troutman?
Correct.
So I'll turn it over to you and Mr. Kaczynski for the municipal budget discussion. I don't think so, Mr. Goodell. We're, unless you have updates for us in executive, we could always call you. Nothing new. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodell.
Thank you.
I think while you're here, you may as well keep going. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna see it.
So let's start with maybe Princeton Farms and then come back to Elsa.
What? Okay.
So while Ms. Troutman goes through the papers, final element that we're going to be looking at from municipal budget, we did not tackle the Princeton Farms sewer system. I asked Ms. Troutman to do some further analysis. We're going to look at the change in flows based on the successful work we did to reduce inflows over the last year. We're going to talk about how that impacts things. We have some capital on the horizon for Princeton Farms, and then we'll come back to the ELSA discussion, and including, Mayor, your question on the annual fee. Do you want us to look at landscape or portrait to start? Maybe you start with the landscape, which is the overall view of the budget.
So the sheet that's organized in the landscape is a history of actual expenditures out of the Stony Brook Sewer Authority. Items to note is you'll see how the salary and wage line has, depending on overtime versus, if there was a situation that arose where we needed additional salary and wage line, but for the most part, it's a pretty steady salary and wage. When we look at operations, the main piece of our operations is our treatment cost to Stony Brook. You'll see how it had gone up and started spiking at the highest at 2022, and now we are starting to come back down. When we look at when we're billed for Stony Brook, it is based on, we are provided an invoice, a bill at the beginning of a year, an estimation based upon your prior 5 years of usage. So it's a fixed cost at the end of a year, so, or the start of the year. So for 2025, we received an invoice so that we will owe $250,000 to Stony Brook. What they'll do at the end of this year is take a look at what the actual flows were, compare it to what the estimated bills were, and they credit you the following year. So for this year in 2025,
So the line we're looking at is the SBRSA
Correct,
line, so
SBRSA.
that is the treatment cost.
correct,
And so you can see 248 to 283, 285, 2023, down a little bit, 260. We budgeted 280.
And that's going down because of all the work on
Inflow
inflow
and
and
infiltration,
infiltration
yeah.
that we have done.
correct.
That's
yeah,
why it's
and
now
it's
coming
based on the
back down.
5-year average, so the
Right.
2024 actual treatment of what we sent through was lower than what we did the years before, so the 5-year average is coming back down.
Okay.
Yep. Plus, for 2025, we had a credit applied from the prior year because, again, it's based on the 5-year average. So what they billed us at the start of the year was not actually what we needed to pay for treatment because of the project that we did, number one, and number two, it was a dry year. So the treatment cost of last year were less. So we do, this $250,000 includes a $30,000 credit from last year's payments.
Well, it's good to see things moving in the.
Yes, we are moving in the right direction.
Yep. And I think it might be helpful, I know Ms. Downey could not join us this evening, but I think it might be helpful, if the mayor agrees, at some point to do a work session with the residents, just to update them, because there was a question as to whether this inflow and infiltration would result in real benefit, and I think it has. And I think we're getting a double benefit because we did not only the capital project, but we also did additional work that Mr. Snyder led with our public works team to identify high flow, situations where there was inflow into the system. And so I'm looking very much forward to looking at how much the actual, sewer treatment was in this past year, because I think it's substantially less than it was.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe this is a question, Ms. Downey may be the right one to ask, but has the cost of treatment remained stable over the past 5 years?
Like per gallon or,
Yes.
yeah.
Because it would not only
Sure.
just be a matter of usage and treatment, but also the cost.
that's a good question. I would have to look back at the invoices, at how they send them to us and see what the ratio would look like on that.
Yeah, because what I'm thinking is that if the cost has gone up, even if infiltration is successful and the usage has gone down, that might be hidden by the fact that it costs more.
Good point.
Yes, good point. So in the debt service section of our expenditures, we have we're starting to make payments this year on the iBank project. We do not have a payment schedule yet. I know that we have to start making a payment in September, We have not received what the actual amount will be. I have an estimate that we're working on. We should receive something in the near future, but it will be after the time of budget adoption. So
Okay.
the best thing to do is move forward with the estimate that we've been provided.
Yeah, what I think is important is, despite that additional payment, the overall sewer utility budget is relatively in line with a year ago. So I think we have stabilized things, and hopefully from here, from an operating standpoint, I know there's some projects on the horizon, but we should be able to stabilize payments for residents.
And I always mention this with the utilities, but this is self-liquidating or self-sufficient. So there's not covered by any general fund monies. This is all
Correct.
covered by rents and surplus
Yes,
within the
user
utility.
rents, and then the utilities surplus supplements user rents as well.
Gotcha. All right.
So if we were to take a look at the long sheet, so if you're looking at the long sheet, the one that's in the portrait, it has the 2025 expenditures of $475,000 as matching the landscape document. When we look at the top and we take a look at the amount of surplus needed to balance the budget, the surplus balance on 12/31/2024 was $88,000 and change. We would need $42,000 to balance this budget.
And what I remember, the good news is there was a period where we were going to exhaust the surplus. And so
Correct.
the fact that you're able to put $42,000 of surplus towards this budget and still have a healthy surplus.
In 2024, we utilized $58,000, and I believe in 2023, it was closer to high 80s. We
Wow,
needed
that's
to
great.
balance. So we are going in the right direction.
That's great.
Yep. I think that's important, and maybe when we do the budget introduction, we normally focus on the operating budget, but perhaps we could have that 3-year history.
I'm comfortable with this. Anyone else? Anything?
I am as well. And you were going to come back to us as well with Elsa, and you were doing a little bit more work there, so.
So I did a little research. I did send an email. I do not have a confirmation number on the number of users to anticipate for the year. But what I have is that based on the number of COs that I know we have right now, and based on the number of accounts that I see that have been input into Edmunds, I could come up with a guess on what we have today. So one of the things we may need to do, and I'm still working this out with the state of New Jersey, is you know how when we adopt our municipal budget, and if a change occurs after adoption, we would do a Chapter 159. So we may follow the same process for the utility, whereas we would go through with the known, adopt our budget with what is known, and then as 50 units come on board, we would take the amount of expenditures and the amount of revenues anticipated and do a 159. That is one method that they may ask us to do. But for right now, I'm estimating the ELSA budget with a transitional phase-in of number of units. So I can share my documents in a second. Slightly different because I was asked to modify and come back with new numbers. Okay, so if we start by looking at the document that's in the long sheet, the one that's more the portrait, not the landscape. When I'm looking, if we start at the bottom of the sheet and we look at expenditures, then we can go back and later look at the revenue. So if we start at the bottom with expenditures, the area that had changed from the last week was in the treatment cost. Everything else has stayed stable for other expenditures. But when I'm looking at the treatment cost, if I have existing users on the ELSA sewer utility of 1,685 is the number of existing units.
What line are we on?
It's like halfway down on this
Here,
long
right?
sheet.
Yeah,
See the
okay,
red?
gotcha.
Yeah, look for the red.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So sewer treatment was
Okay.
975K divided by
100.
85 users.
Right?
Yes,
Yes.
That's the 580. We're gonna have a full year based on the new COs of 200 new users. That's the second line, and then
Yep.
you did a adjusted basis for the people coming on in Q3 and Q4.
Excellent.
That's, yes.
Makes sense. Thank
And
you
then
for
I
doing
did the
that.
same at the top when I looked at revenues and what the revenues would be coming through.
And what you're projecting is, unlike the last utility, you're gonna use a little bit more of the surplus, right? But that's because there's some uncertainty,
Yes.
and we will be able to adjust that throughout the year. You're still leaving surplus at the end of the day in the budget, but we don't want to burden current users until we know better.
And the
How many-
timing of how these roll out, because of the way that this utility bills, it's all at the end of a year. So David, at the last meeting, you had asked me the delinquencies.
Yeah.
Year over year was 50,000, I believe, last year to this year. So that is a common number because the billing occurs in the end of a year, like the bills are received in December, where they don't always get paid in the month of December and we roll into the next year, but because our budgets are based on a calendar year, they do tend to roll into the next year.
That makes sense. One thing I'm noting on here, which I don't think is something we need to revisit, but just for the final
Yeah.
budget numbers, I see that in the expenses side, the ramp up we have is the 275.75. If we look at the rents up top, we're doing 275.50.
50,
Yeah.
just for conservative, not knowing
Okay,
timing
okay,
of
okay. So
billing.
we're purposefully doing less rents than, okay.
Yes, for timing of billing and timing of when accounts get created, because we have a flow-through also with Trenton Water. So Trenton Water, we bill our usage based on Trenton Water. So if that person doesn't have their account set up yet, or if the coordination of accounts,
Where we get a cost
our
without
billing.
the, okay, no, that's great.
And so one of the things I'm gonna look to Mr. Snyder on, because it came up at the very end of our last meeting, we do need to do some outreach to Trenton Water Works, because I understand there's some lag in their, we bill based on water usage, and so there has been some lag on the new units on Trenton Water Works measuring that usage. And for those of you who weren't here, we had that issue with the Stop and Shop shopping center, and it was, millions of gallons in arrears, and so this is a smaller number of units and such, but I think if we get ahead of it with Trenton Water Works, which I know you have a good relationship, we'll get that done, right?
So yes, I was, after the last meeting, I reached out to Michael Walker, and he gave me a contact. He calls her the equalizer. She said she'll straighten this out. I shared her information with our utilities collection department in case anybody walks in and says they need to, they're having trouble setting up an account. And I also shared it with the HOA manager, Dana, so she could share it with the residents, probably in a newsletter or an email blast. If they're having trouble, contact Delilah Concepcion at Trenton Water Works. I gave it a phone number and email.
Thank
So
you.
we can make sure they're on track.
Yeah, so thank you. This is a good improvement from last time. Appreciate the additional work. I'm comfortable. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
No, just think
Anything
in broad
else to add?
terms, we've reviewed both the capital and the operating budget and the utilities budget. So Ms. Troutman is going to finalize the numbers we shared last week. We will prepare those. We're under state review this year, so she will get those off between now and our meeting on the, where are we, the 14th or 21st? 14th. Between now and our meeting on the 14th, we will have introduction at the meeting on the 14th, and then it's a statutory requirement on when we can actually vote on the budget. So we will have a mid-May vote on the 2025 budget. But as we talked in the last meeting, the tax rate in this proposed budget will go down.
Great. Well, thank you both to Mr. Gratinsky and Ms. Troutman for all of your work. As I said last time, this doesn't just happen. All of these numbers and the tax rate going down doesn't just happen. It took a lot of work by both of you and us too, but more you. And so we appreciate it. Anything else before we do the final public comment section? Okay, so if you'd like to speak on any topic, please come to the podium, state your name, where you live, limit your comments to 3 minutes, same rules as last time. And is that for anyone on Zoom, Ms. Van Newman?
I love coming here and getting my comments on at once. You got 2 properties across the street, 2 farms. Like I said, for the past 5 years, before they fall down, because you don't take care of them, is to sell them and recoup some money. They let somebody preserve them, because you didn't preserve them, you just bought, you swapped them, so they're not preserved. You can sell them, the people can preserve them, there'll still be a farm. But we cannot afford to take care of these 2 farms. You don't need any park space. We got almost 3,000 acres of park space. We don't need any park space. So please, save some of our money and sell those properties, and then you can maybe reduce some of the taxes around here. You got 2 farms. Go look at them. They're going to fall down if you don't maintain them. I don't think you guys have been up in a while. I've been there, and they need a lot of maintenance. But they can be salvaged. You can make some money on them. But you do like the county does, let it fall down to disrepair and it's worthless, then you only got land. So I'm just letting you know, I'd like to know what your plans are for those 2 farms.
Thank you.
Yes, Jim Bird, Hopewell Township. I wanted to get back to you for 2 things. I was at Lawrence Township last week, and one of the things that came up, which was pretty interesting to me, because I was a guy from Hopewell Township, and I was listening to what these people were saying from Lawrence Township, because when we get off of Route 31 onto Bull Run Road, and we run it east until we come to Federal City Road, that's where a light will take place. But the real challenge comes when you turn left to go north on Federal City Road, because before you get to I-295, you'll come to the Tradition Way, which is on the right-hand side, which is a development that sits back alongside of I-295, and that's Lawrence Township. And that's where the real challenge comes when people are trying to get off of their, or get out of their development and onto Scotch Road and go, or excuse me, to get on Federal City Road and go south, because the number of people that go to SIPEC school as well as College of New Jersey, there's no way that people can get onto Federal City Road southbound. So one of the things that they said was, well, Hopewell Township has a small plot of property there that we would like to put a traffic light, but Hopewell Township doesn't want to do that. And so I think what's very important is that both mayors in Lawrence, as well as Hopewell Township, the head of the Public Works, as well as the engineer, and possibly the attorneys should get together and figure this thing out properly. The other important thing that I'm bringing up, once again, is in regards to Bill S-4065. And the reason I say that is because it's time to get rid of the tunnel vision that we have and talk with other municipalities in New Jersey about this. Because Route 546, which is Washington Crossing, Pennington Road, south, that's Ewing Lawrence Sewer Authority. North is Stony Brook. And really nothing happens in Stony Brook area. And why don't we do that? And I'll go into greater detail at another week. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom, Ms. Fenton Newman? No one else in the audience. With that, I'll close the public comment section. I will start with the oldest house and the Timberlane Horse Farm. I actually have been to both of them within the past 6 months, less than a year. Mr. Goodell was here. I would punt it to him about the rules with that land swap. We can't just sell those houses. It's deed restricted. So I understand that desire to make that a productive piece of property, but it is township owned and it needs to be used for a public purpose or recreation or open space. That's the deed restriction. It is what it is. You can disagree with that, but that's the fact.
I totally disagree. I was part of the
So again, I was very quiet and listened when you spoke. I would really appreciate it if you would give me the same respect back. So I have been there. I've toured both of them. As I've mentioned in public, we're working with the fire commissioners to perhaps put a career fire station up at the Timberlane Horse Farm. And we are working with the Historic Preservation Commission to preserve the oldest farm, including having a caretaker live there perhaps. So we will absolutely not let it fall into disrepair. We have plans in place. We're working on the budget, perhaps with open space funding, which will sort of is the best of both worlds. I know this is your passion.
I mean, I think, just to build on what you said, I mean, we've looked at that property. I toured it with the mayor and with our administrator. We looked at, every pending maintenance need. Some of those we're going to pay through with existing open space funds because that's one of the provisions of the open space trust fund. We're going to make sure that it doesn't fall into disrepair. So I agree with your point. And we think we can adapt it for productive reuse. And we look forward, there'll be more details coming from on the one property from a historic preservation standpoint. It is perhaps, we're having someone come in and study it now. It is perhaps the oldest structure in Hopewell Township from what we have seen from the early reports from historians. So it is worth preserving and protecting, to your point. And then the mayor has talked about for the Timberlane Horse Farm, potentially an adaptive reuse that helps support our evolving needs. But we think, having looked at it, and I know she was out there personally with our
Several times.
with our fire commissioners and others. And
That's a stupid idea.
Again, this is our turn to
Because
talk.
you guys don't have a vision. You just spend. You put the fire department
All right,
over here.
we were not having yelling out from the audience.
I'm
Again,
just
I
telling
know
you
that
that
this is
doesn't make
the trend now is to just yell and be rude, but we listened to you. Now it's our turn to speak. I think we're done with this topic. We can agree to disagree. We don't have to agree on everything. Our vision may not be what you like, but this is our vision. And it's bound by the rules. As for Federal City and Bull Run Road, I don't know what information you're getting from Lawrence Township, but I actually speak to the mayor and council members in Lawrence often. We all got together, Mr. Snyder and I had a meeting with representatives from the county, from Ewing, from Lawrence, about potentially putting either a roundabout or a stoplight at Federal City and Bull Run. Lawrence is moving forward with putting a traffic light at Federal Point and Bull Run. There is some discussion amongst the three towns about what is the best solution for that intersection, but it is ongoing. We're applying to DOT as a three-town consortium to get funding for Federal City and Bull Run. So it is moving forward. We talk often, the three towns, about this very issue. I think that covers it. So we do have executive tonight. We have, I understand you don't like the answers always, but I commit to giving you all factual, appropriate answers, and I would appreciate it if you would give us the same respect that we give you when you speak.
And I would like to hear.
So, now could I have a motion to enter executive, please? Our topics tonight are litigation, real estate, and personnel. And a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Whereas it is necessary for the Township Committee to discuss real estate, legal, contract negotiations, and/or personnel matters, and whereas NJSA 10:4-12 permits the Township Committee to conduct a meeting from which the public is excluded in order to discuss such matters, and whereas the time, when, and circumstances under which discussion conducted in executive session may be disclosed to the public is when appropriate, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hopewell, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, that the Township Committee shall forthwith conduct an executive session to discuss the above. Be it further resolved that the scope of the aforesaid executive session will be limited to the above matters as stated. Thank you for an executive.